So what does it actually mean? I think a lot of presentations today, even from the main hall, I've talked about the growth in IoT devices and the predictions going forward. We're looking at 76 billion devices by 2025. Now, a lot of people will say, well, that seems like a lot of devices, but if you look at the list of things that are being added to networks today, we're talking about sensors, phones, valves, alarms. Basically, everything is being added to the network, and this is forming part of what is now the IoT. All these devices have to be managed, they have to be secured, they have to be monitored. So we have a law. Why the incremental growth? Well, Metcalfe says that every connected node exponentially increases the value of a network. Because everything you put onto the network is increasing productivity, efficiency, revenue. It's adding some value to the organization, and that's why we're adding these devices. However, conversely, we also have a law that everything you put onto the network exposes your risk to cyber attack or some sort of attack. So it's a balancing act. We're adding more devices, but how do we manage and how do we secure them? So some of the challenges that we're seeing: operational technology, cybersecurity, limited resources, and this is actually a very, very big one. If you go on LinkedIn these days, you see a lot of articles about the lack of available experts or even people that are going into cybersecurity. And it's a very big market. I saw one the other day that they were advertising entry level, I think it was about 70,000. My son is 14 years old. He came to me and said, "Dad, this is what I want to do." I'm not sure if it was the money or what, but that's the sort of thing that's out there. 360-degree network security. If you go onto the website or if you go onto the internet and you check out the BlackBerry Security Summit, you will see that a lot of people secure their servers, they secure their data centers, but they don't secure the fridge in their office or the kettle. And we've actually shown that within 15 minutes, we can access any network going through one of those appliances. Yes, it's true. It's on the internet. You can check it out. So we also have things like, the drilling platforms and, the challenges like regulatory challenges. There's always new benchmarks being set for organizations. Application and data security. A lot of companies are now building their own in-house applications and deploying them. When they're building them, the excitement is around what the application can deliver to their users. They don't think about the security implications of those applications. And those are the sort of things that we also have to bear in mind. Cybersecurity planning and strategy. A lot of organizations make it up as they go along. It's almost a nice to have rather than an intrinsic part. One of the things that we face in our industry is where we approach a client and we say to them, if you spend this amount of money, we can provide you this level of protection, and they'll say it's too much money. But the minute something happens, that money becomes insignificant because the bad guys will be asking for a lot more than we were asking to prevent in the first place. So these are some of the challenges that we face. What are the entrenched challenges that already existed? Well, to be fair, a lot of the components that were developed for the oil and gas industry were not built with security in mind. That wasn't the main objective. It's only now that security is coming to the fore. The challenge now with all the segments of production, distribution, and management is for security. And a CIO survey that was done showed that 90% of CIOs actually see security as the number one challenge they face in both digital transformation and deploying IoT. That's a very high number. So security is key. And a bit of marketing. BlackBerry has been doing security for 35 years. A lot of people wonder why we're at these conferences. We thought you were gone. We thought you were... So we've been doing this for about 35 years. It's core to our DNA. Basically, what we've done is move from hardware into software. So we're very much a software company. And recently, in February of this year, we spent $1.5 billion buying a company called Cylance, which is the #1 AI predictive cybersecurity company in the world. So we bought that back in February, and that moves us up a level in our cybersecurity. We already work with all the finance organizations, all the government organizations, and as oil and gas becomes more important, as security becomes more important in the oil and gas sector, we can see ourselves also delivering a lot of value there. On this note, I will pass over to my colleague, John Bavester, who will continue the presentation. Thank you.
So one of the things that we've found that is required, because of this shift and this move from trying to get from a place where we behaved in quite a traditional manner, where most of the thought and the process was around the core of our network. There are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, pounds that are poured into core security every year isn't good enough anymore, because we're adding, as our colleagues at Microsoft alluded earlier, we're adding edge to it all of the time. And we're adding functionality to that network all the time. And so rather than thinking about a cybersecurity strategy, we think you should be thinking about cybersecurity resilience, okay? And that resilience starts way before you've done anything. It starts at the beginning of your software development lifecycle. It starts at the engineering, the design, is that still working? Yeah. Design stage. And it looks at, and our friends Darktrace at the back there, threat intelligence. What do we know already that we need to start designing for? So it starts way before we're doing anything. We don't ignore the core, but the key is that you are never finished. It's a continuous process, okay? It starts before you've done anything, and it continues, it never finishes. Training and awareness is one of the biggest things that we find people lack when we go into organizations. You know, I went into it was a university, not this one, but it gives a good idea of where training and awareness of your staff comes into play. I had a meeting at a London university. I knew the room, I knew the floor. I went through security, I told them who I was meeting, where I was meeting them. I went up to the 4th floor in this university, sat down in a room in front of a PC, and then pinned to the board behind the PC was the username and password to access the PC. No amount of core investment in security is going to get around that behavior. If you haven't trained your staff, no amount of action before you get to your staff is going to solve your problem. Yeah? Looking at a little bit more specifically about where we are and why this is impactful for the oil and gas industry, is that we're seeing a big shift, and that shift is closing the gap between OT and IT. And what do we mean by that? That means adding all of these other pieces to the edge to collect data, okay? That data brings us value. It helps us be more efficient. It helps us raise revenue. It helps us be more productive. When we bring that information together from various nodes, various information resources, you know, a workflow stream, simple replace a valve could be generated in an IoT world by hundreds of actions before that, okay? We're closing that gap, and we're taking that data and we're injecting it into our IT system, okay? So things that were originally sitting there as individual pieces of technology are now informing the central IT system. I think we're close to time now, but what we would recommend you do, and the one thing to take away from this, I guess, is ask an expert. Nobody was born with this knowledge, and this is a journey. Never assume that you have finished, because if you assume you have, you haven't. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.